obvious limitation of the book is that it is also not given a unified perspective or viewpoint. That way, it is representing diverse voices of people. I just given overview of what do we mean by data justice. It's also a new term. So the proliferation of digital data has benefited various stakeholders, including the state, the private sector, and even ordinary citizens who now enjoy unprecedented ease in accessing information and services. From customized suggestions in our social media to the best song recommendation, from accurate weather forecast prompting us to carry umbrellas, editing and typing, creating content quicker than ever, data-driven technologies have revolutionized our everyday life. While data-powered technologies rule the world, there are simultaneous processes to establish the rule of law for its use. However, for the vast majority of citizens, it is still an uncharted territory. We do not know what happens to the vast amount of data that is being collected from us, how our identities are used to profile us in specific ways, how is it restricting our social media usage, and what happens to it if it reaches the people in power who might disagree with our digital data, including our opinions. Data processing technologies are by no means unbiased or neutral. In fact, people who are already historically marginalized often end up at the receiving end of unequal or biased datification. In light of this concern, this edited volume seeks to assemble a multitude of perspectives and insights from diverse stakeholders on data-driven technologies and systems. I request my editor Ananthu to take it.
Hi, I'm Ananthu. I work with the Data Justice Project as a consultant for DEF. Jenny has started the introduction. So we are in a transitory stage of adopting and adapting to these new AI technologies. And as we were reminded the day before in the academic paper discussions that happened in this room, this transitory phase is when we need the most critical inputs to ensure there is justice as we begin to live with these technologies. There have been several discussions in academic work on different perspectives on AI, like the feminist perspective. So our work with the Allen Turing Institute is an extension of this, adding intersectional aspects like decoloniality. So in this long history of colonial use of technology to discipline vernaculars and let's say gain control of information economy of the people, how could we see this new attempts at automation and digitization? So what happens when we force this digital on the poorest and most marginalized sections? Where does it leave space for any redress or communication? And also, to move forward, do we only look at these aspects from a critical lens, or can we also look at other ways of reimagining data and along with it the frameworks also, so that it can be in line with social justice and equality? So for our initial report that we worked on, we talked to people who are asking these questions and also attempting at building solutions. And then we asked if they could detail it with more deeper and more personal narrative, which is what we have in this book here today. So the formal book launch had already, it happened yesterday. So today we now have the authors here. So we invite the authors to speak about the contents along with, we have also other distinguished guest speakers.
And I think we need to understand, even though often the lens by which we understand people is we know where they're coming from and which interests they are, and I want to state my interests as well. But when we come to an issue of justice, something that I raised yesterday, I'd like to keep that in the conversation. That at least in India, today, because so many of us are trying to protect the constitutional framework, I would like to say that at least fundamental rights, but the overall framework of the constitution is something that in the Indian conversation we have to keep to. Otherwise, we have nothing to tether ourselves to. And those are things that within our framework, it's something that we came together to say, what is India? I'm saying this at the beginning because I think that's a very important political question. It's a question that if it gets marginalized, then everything is open and you can do what you like and use things the way you like, and we are only a subset all of us, a subset of a certain conversation and an agreement at the end of a very big conversation of the national movement of what is India. We came to a certain agreement of what India is. In that, of course, there can be debates and arguments. But at least I want to state that that's something that I see as being extremely important of saying that this is where the basis on which I say some of the things I do. The second is that I think where the issue that I am looking at, which is the governing of data governance. Who actually, by governing meaning who is at it. So these terms which are used of good governance, which I feel again is not an idea I've discussed so much in this, but I do want to put it forward in this conversation, is that it's a very neutral kind of term and it is actually politically mischievous. Because it does not, governance can be anything then, and good governance can be anything, and rule of law is similarly to the today lawfare has become such a terrible means by which I can be incarcerated under patently unjust laws, and my argument against that unjust law is that I am in violation of the law, whereas that law is not justice. That law, so similarly, governance is not in and of itself okay. So I would prefer to call it democratic governance, even though there are many further qualifications that need to be made, but definitely rather than good governance, because especially when it comes to data, good governance becomes a very convenient label because it's good for anyone who holds that data. There are three ways in which, to me, big data, metadata is used. And metadata is a centralizing force. That, I mean, I would love to have a conversation if someone says it isn't, but there is no doubt that it is centralizing, and therefore it comes with everything that when you centralize in a democracy, what it means, what it takes away from the individual, what it gives for communities, and what it gives to people who govern. In a democracy, govern in our name. So the framework of governing in someone's name. And big data goes beyond, it is all political, but it goes beyond just governance. It goes into the commercial sphere, which I won't so much touch upon. There are many people, but there is that complete combination between governing people and commercially and powerful people, the corporate sector basically, but those who control the market. So this combination between the market and governance, which we've seen in neoliberal times. And then there are the administrators who all of us deal with, who are actually they are the ones who we think are doing everything, and they're a kind of management. And this layer of management is again something I'd like to touch upon. How much time should we have? 5 minutes? 5. Yeah, so I'll just quickly now go into 2-3 things that these areas. So my perspectives comes from very much a grassroots perspective. Very much grassroots doesn't mean that I'm just in one area. Grassroots means that those millions and crores or billions or whatever people who are all over, what they feel on their skin every day. And that comes from seeing it in 1, 2, 10 places, but seeing how this applies in many places, which is why the experience from the Right to Information Law or the National Rural Employment Guarantee or the Food Security Act, these are the examples I'll give just very quickly. So what I suggested yesterday, and I really would like to sell this point in a sense over and over again, is what we are talking about, does it enhance the rights in our constitution, the fundamental rights, or does it curtail? That is one lens through which, or one evaluator through which I think we need to see whatever it is that we are doing, both for the gathering of data, the management of data, and the use of data, and big data as well. There's another big perspective I'd like to bring in from the Right to Information, not from India, but from South Africa's constitution, which followed India's Right to Information law, where they put it into the constitution that every citizen will have the right to information to enhance any other right. So that qualified it in a beautiful way, in my opinion, because the right to information in and of itself means nothing. It can be used any which way. So does data. Data can be used anywhere. What is it being used for? By whom? How? That qualifier that was there in the South African Constitution is extremely important. Now I just want to go into some specifics. One perspective on RTI, and I'll just take 2 minutes. One perspective on RTI is a question of when we come to management, we all deal with management information systems all over. As data came in, right to information was affected by that everything was being digitized. And therefore, RTI did only one thing. It said what is with government will be available to people through an RTI application. And what did government do? It digitized everything and hid them behind admin laws. So they actually violated the RTI in one stroke through management information systems. But in a management perspective comes many things. It's management for the manager. And that manager has a boss, a political boss or a commercial boss or both. It is not from what we want to build as a Janata information system. And now I'll just give you some meta violation examples. We have that whole perspective of, that architecture is policy and code is law. How we have faced that over and over again. One, I'd like to talk about National Food Security Act, 3 quick examples. NFSA says, okay, we'll gather big data to decide who will be on the NFSA beneficiary list or not. They gather the big data. People don't get access to that. Aadhaar, which maybe Srinivas or someone, I won't go into it, excludes millions of people. Millions of people get excluded because they say, we will improve this through technology. And they're still improving it and people are getting excluded. But the data itself, today in Rajasthan's database, automatic inclusion is supposed to be there of all those who are either disability pensioners or old age pensioners. 9 lakh old age pensioners are not in the list, 4 lakh disability pensioners are not in the list. That data is not made public. They can't even fight using the data, but they should have a legitimate right. So you're claiming to gather it for one reason, but the politics doesn't let you do it. So you don't do it. So what the hell is the use of this? It's only for the use of management. It is not being able to be used by people, and it's taken a huge RTI battle to get it into the public domain. Similarly, in National Food Security Act, the law says anyone, let's say I am one of those 4 lakh, and I show my disability certificate, and first call is for me to be on the Food Security Act. I show my certificate, I have an appeal, but no, your data is closed. The site is closed. Government of India has said, we will not let a single person in. So everyone on the ground in Rajasthan, in a village will tell you, ki abhi to band hai site. They use the language saying that the site is closed, so you can't appeal. So your legal right to appeal is taken away by a code which says that you cannot enter this to even make the appeal. MG and REJs, yesterday I gave the examples, but I just want to end by that, the saying that we built something, attempted to build something like a Janata information system. That is to say that we work out how once this data is collected, because we have no choice but to try and work. If it's taken away from us, we have to try and work to get it back, to put it to use for ourselves. And in the digital data protection law, Rakshita will talk about it more, but I just want to say there are ways and means, and we are enjoying to be able to